I think we'll make a start because we've got a packed session this afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this particularly warm day. My name is Sally Berkery and I am the Managing Director of CEW UK. Sustainability is high on the agenda at CEW and of course across the breadth of our industry, from the ban on microbeads to growing concern over single-use plastics. The buzz around clean beauty to the more recent blue beauty movement, it's fair to say that consumers are waking up to the real impact that their beauty regime and the products they choose to buy have on the planet and its future. And this has been further galvanized, of course, by the effects of the pandemic. The growing emphasis on sustainability has given rise to an exciting new generation of beauty brands that are generous in education and don't require consumers to compromise between efficacy, ethics, and aesthetics. And yet the predominance of misleading claims and the lack of universal sustainable certification means that greenwashing is still rife. And as a result, the ability for beauty brands and retailers to communicate sustainability in a way that's clear, compelling, and constructive is more essential than it ever has been. In this session, I am really delighted to welcome back Spring Studios, who will be detailing the 5 guiding principles for crafting sustainable beauty communications that capture consumers' imaginations and help to bring about meaningful change. And then Sarah Jossel, Beauty Director of the Sunday Times Style, will discuss these with Sally Ann Lim, Insights Director of Spring, and our guests, Sarah Brown, who's the founder of Pie Skincare, and Arnaud Messel, the CEO of Ren Clean Skincare. There will be time for questions at the end, so please do use the Q&A panel rather than the chat at the bottom of your screen. You all know where it is by now. But without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you, Sally Ann. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Sally. Let me just share my screen. Right, hopefully you can all see this now. So as Sally mentioned, we're delighted to be kicking off today's webinar by sharing Spring's latest piece on thought leadership, crafting compelling sustainable beauty communications in the age of greenwashing. And the format for today's presentation is really to share Spring's 5 guiding principles for crafting compelling sustainable beauty communications. Starting with number 1, create a compelling and ownable narrative that is underpinned by action. It's fair to say that sustainable beauty is a hot topic, with a deluge of both legacy brands and new entrants vying to win over conscious consumers with their commitments and claims. As our attitude and understanding of sustainability is evolving at pace, the challenge is really to identify that sweet spot where a brand's values and what is timely and relevant to consumers intersect. Those that cut through are able to craft narratives that not only resonate on an emotional level, but are underpinned by tangible actions and initiatives, successfully appealing to both consumers' hearts and to their minds. And 2 examples just to bring this principle to life. On the left-hand side, in March of this year, Unilever announced that it was removing the word normal from all of its products and communications in a bid to end discrimination in the beauty industry and focus on its positive, sustainable practices. Spring is proud to have brought this initiative to life with a concept that redefines normality and underlines Unilever's commitment to doing good for both people and planet. Crucially, the positive beauty mission is further underpinned by several progressive commitments. The pledge to help protect and regenerate 1.5 million hectares of land, forest and ocean by 2030, and supporting a global ban on animal testing in cosmetics by 2023. And on the right-hand side, Biotherm's Live by Blue Beauty manifesto is a call to arms, inviting customers to join them in the very topical Blue Beauty movement and explaining what it means to the brand. Beauty that comes from the ocean through the responsible sourcing of its life plankton hero ingredient and gives back through its commitment to ocean protection and reducing plastic waste. The brand actually first launched its Water Lovers Ocean Preservation Initiative back in 2012, which sees it work with experts and NGOs. And to this day, Biotherm continues to pioneer refillable and recyclable packaging solutions across the breadth of its range. Number 2, appeal to the new skinnimalist consumer mindset. Now, as Sally mentioned at the outset of this presentation, the pandemic has really prompted people to reconsider their beauty routines. One of Pinterest's top predictions for 2021, skinimalism, is all about achieving that pared back, healthy and effortless glow. And searches for natural everyday makeup are also up 180% year on year. Savvy brands are recognizing that this buy less, choose well mindset actually really neatly dovetails with the growing interest in sustainable beauty, and are increasingly highlighting skincare meets makeup hybrids, which satisfy consumers' desire for both invisible coverage and more streamlined routines. As part of this, we're also seeing refillable products gaining in traction and sophistication across not only skincare, but also colour cosmetics. And increasingly, they're positioned as items that are kind of covetable, that you want to keep and treasure, as well as being good for the planet. With its clean skin-centric beauty positioning, Ilia boasts a range of best-selling multis, hardworking products with versatile uses that are part skincare and part makeup. They appeal to this skin-minimalist consumer mindset with products that can be used to colour and highlight both lips and cheeks, as well as a serum highlighter that delivers that desirable dewy glow alongside blue light protection. Ilia have worked hard to simplify and source materials that are safe for planet and also safe for product, and are partnering with TerraCycle to ensure that all of its packaging can be broken down responsibly. And on the right-hand side, from its inception, Victoria Beckham's eponymous beauty brand's goal was to create true luxury performance in the clean beauty space. The brand brings together a clean and lean approach to product formulation, responsible sourcing, and sustainably minded design. In addition to its zero plastic solid brass smoky eye compact that you see pictured here, Victoria Beckham Beauty recently released its first ever refillable product, a covetable matte bronzing brick. Number 3, be transparent and generous in sharing insight and education. Today, there are a plethora of interests that come under the umbrella of sustainability: cruelty-free, sustainably sourced, ethical, recyclable, refillable, etc. What constitutes sustainable is not clear-cut, as there's no one single universal certification, and technology and supply chains are evolving at pace. As a result, 33% of consumers are struggling to understand which products are genuinely eco-friendly, according to a report by Mintel. And 61% of women globally feel like brands are just labeling their products with clean beauty without any tangible details. Therefore, the challenge for brands is twofold: be transparent, both in terms of progress and commitments, and increase education so that consumers are better equipped to make sustainable choices. Ren's Clean Skincare announced its pledge to become zero waste back in 2018, and also committed to being totally transparent about every step in that journey towards its end of 2021 goal. As CEO Arnaud explains, this is particularly crucial as from a consumer perspective, the changes actually aren't very visible. The product experience is the same, or indeed it improves, but we are explaining as we make these changes how and why components are now recycled and recyclable. And I'm sure that Arnaud will elaborate on that in the discussion to follow. Another one of our amazing panelists, Pi Skincare, are committed to raising awareness of the fact that sustainability is not just about packaging, it's end-to-end, encompassing the full supply chain. Driven by the belief that independent accreditation is key to bringing about meaningful change in the industry, Pi's founder, Sarah Brown, who joins us today, and her team are super active on social, using it to educate consumers about the ingredient certification standards that they see on pack, both what they mean and the rigor required in achieving them, in a way that's really relevant, engaging, and accessible. Number 4, recognize that circular beauty can extend beyond category. We're at a turning point at which we recognize that no single person or company can bring about change at an industry level, and yet every individual action is crucially important. The concept of the circular economy has gained considerable traction in recent years, based on principles of designing out waste and pollution, keeping products and materials in use, and regenerating natural systems. Inspired by this, innovative beauty brands are embracing innovative and unexpected cross-category and even intra-category partnerships in a bid to make the beauty industry as a whole more sustainable. Spring works closely with Lumine, a Nordic beauty brand that have been pioneering the circular economy in beauty for over 20 years now, demonstrating the potential of cross-category collaborations by working really closely with the Finnish food and forestry industries. In fact, the majority of Lumine's potent Nordic ingredients are actually sourced from side streams of these industries that would otherwise just simply go to waste. And launched in April of this year by Ren, the We Are Allies campaign defied industry convention by seeing the brand form an unexpected partnership with 4 of its competitors: Biossance, Use for People, Caudalie, and Herbivore. The brands are united in making a zero waste pledge that states that all brands will create packaging that can be recycled and reused and that contains recycled materials by 2025. Vasiliki Petru, Group CEO and EVP of Unilever Prestige, explains, "It's true that advertising the competition doesn't make sense in traditional business, but the current environmental crisis calls for us all to do things differently." And finally, number 5, make recycling part of your CRM strategy. I'm sure we'll all recall that over a year ago, MAC first introduced Back to MAC, a program that works to reduce landfill by encouraging consumers to bring back 6 of its empty products for recycling in order to receive a free lipstick. Fast forward to the present day, and innovative beauty brands are really underlying their commitment to sustainability by making recycling programs a key part of their customer loyalty schemes, rewarding members for their part in reducing plastic waste, and not just simply for purchase. As a part of this dynamic, loyalty scheme members opt in to receive regular communications about the brand's sustainability commitments, helping to reinforce those shared values and keeping them top of mind. So 2 final examples to end. The first from Korean natural beauty brand Innisfree, who are so committed to promoting sustainability that they've actually built it into the mechanics of their customer loyalty program. Working with the leading recycling company TerraCycle, Innisfree hosts recycling points in every single one of its retail stores. Loyalty scheme members not only receive points for every purchase that they make, but they can earn 50 points for each empty container they return for recycling. Although I must point out that this is actually capped at 3 products per customer per month in order to encourage conscious consumption of their products. And our final example today comes from Bare Minerals. Empty full-size makeup and skincare products from any brand are accepted as part of Bare Minerals' Give Back, Get Back recycling program. Members of the brand's Fab loyalty program can earn 5 Fab points for every item bought into participating Bare Minerals boutiques. Furthermore, proceeds generated by the brand's recycling program are actually donated to help alleviate hunger in local communities, doing good for people and planet. And so there you have it, our 5 guiding principles for crafting compelling, sustainable beauty communications in an easily screenshotable format. Thank you very much. And I'll now hand over to Sarah Jossel for what promises to be a really interesting and insightful discussion.
Thank you. That was really interesting. And it's always great for me to learn so much. So really, really interesting. Thank you very much. I have been given brilliant questions that I thought who wrote a lot of these questions? Because I need to learn a lot of this. So thank you for writing such brilliant questions. So the first thing that I wanted to ask you guys is, the pandemic has served to underscore the critical importance of sustainability. And I think it's inspired a lot of people to reevaluate their beauty routine, as you said. How has this affected you guys and your businesses? And have you seen an evolution in your customer base? Because I think people probably went all over the place in their thoughts and decisions of what to do. What sort of journeys have you witnessed? Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to. It was an interesting time, it still is, and I think it's sometimes quite hard to actually quantify this and attribute, what led to sales and what didn't. But as a general sort of perception, I think my take is that COVID actually accelerated trends that were already happening. So I think, lots of the seeds of conscious beauty were already germinating. Do I think they've massively accelerated in the last sort of year? Yes. And that's great in many ways. But yes, it was the sort of, the beginnings were there already. I think a couple of things that we perhaps saw most was this renewed, I think being locked down and locked in makes you appreciate nature a bit more. So I think there was a renewed consideration of nature. And that started as lifestyle of making your bread and planting your seeds. But then I think it did translate into beauty. And, for us, that played to our values that we've lived for 14 years of organic farming and organic formulation and proving efficacy of organic formulation, which is, absolutely what we're trying to do. So I think that, going back to Spring's point about resonating on an emotional level, I think that's definitely helped us. And I think organic started to become maybe perhaps a bit more accessible for people and a bit more relevant to people. I think the other kind of wider thing is around conscious beauty. and I think this was, touched on in the presentation, but this notion of people really considering every purchase, and not necessarily from a financial point of view, but more about the gravitating to brands that spoke to them on a meaningful level, and spoke to their values. And I think that's what we started to see. And I think the brands that were awarded and did well were those brands that were really clear in those values and embodied them. And I think Ren's a great example, actually, because Ren's spoken passionately and consistently about the health of our oceans for many, many years, which makes it incredibly authentic, incredible, and real. And I think it's like, my advice is always pick your value and be consistent and embody it and underpin it with that action. Asserting your something doesn't make it true. So that would be my summary.
Brilliant, thank you. Arnaud, what about from your perspective?
Yeah, I think, I concur obviously with Sarah, and on the skin minimalist trend, I think clearly the focus on the glow, a healthy glow and so on, for us has been the explosion. We've got a full range called Radiance on that, and a product like Ready Steady Glow. It's been, we grew like this product only by 350% last year.
Wow.
So there was clearly that less is more, less makeup, obviously, because, lockdown and so on. And so need to have, obviously, still your, the best skin possible, the healthier, the healthier skins possible. So focus on that. There was also obviously the explosion of online. So people were getting all these parcels, right, at their home and so on. So clearly that triggered also even more question and a lot of engagement around sustainability and packaging, outer packaging, and all this kind of stuff. So we saw a lot of questions, from our consumers on customer service, chat, online surveys, social and so on, about how do I recycle? What do who can I talk to? And, challenge for us, sometimes we discovered that, well, we had packed a small products in a big box, and that happens, these kind of things, or the opposite, where we choose a recycled cardboard, which actually was not as solid than the non-recycled cardboard. So we had to change, and there was some shortage of recycled cardboard during the pandemic. So, there was a lot of problems. I mean, it still is. So yeah, there was a lot of, clearly people had their health and safety in mind, obviously. I mean, it was very, so we, from our perspective, the We Are Life campaign was planned for last year, so we waited because we didn't want to promote that at that time when it was supposed to be launched in the 16th of April, 2020. So really at the heart of the first wave, right? So we had to fold everything, but we worked in the background, to start relaunching all our key SKUs into sustainable solutions. And again, there was the consumer response was amazing. So yes, a more acute awareness of the problems. People were watching a lot Netflix. People were watching all the documentaries about the planet and all these kind of things. And so yes, it was. And I could see also, we could see, we're partnering with people like Planet Patrol here or Surfrider in the US. These people couldn't do cleanups for a while because it was not allowed, right, to be outside and so on. And the minute, things starting to reopen a little bit, people were on the beach doing the cleanups and so on because they need also to do that. And there were, unfortunately, a lot of new littering and new problems coming from the pandemic.
You're so right about the everybody watching TV. I mean, my friends messaged me. They're like, "Did you see the vegan documentary? Did you see the sea life one? I'm going this. I'm going that." I was like, "Everybody, calm down." But
yeah,
it's true. The
prawns,
documentary did that. Sally, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would just say purely from our perspective, we've definitely seen, across the spectrum, not just in beauty, but in fashion and other industries, people coming to us more and more with the sort of challenge of how do we communicate our sustainability practices. I think historically they were often kind of confined to the sort of pages of a CSR report, and you can't really expect consumers to go there. So it's, that challenge of now there is that appetite. How do you meet people halfway in a way that's engaging, but critically make sure that it's not just a PR stunt, it's actually, advancing sustainability in a really authentic way that's true to brand.
Yeah, I mean, for me, obviously, one of the things I do is I look at new brands and I look at what their sort of their USP is and what their claims are. And it is so you can really see it from a mile away when it is a PR stunt. And I always say, if it's not your thing, don't try make it your thing. Just stay away from it, because when you try, that's when you fall into hot water. So definitely agree with you there. So one of the points that you touched on, Sally, in the opening presentation was about greenwashing. And I think greenwashing is a great name because it really sort of puts a point on exactly what we're trying to tell people to avoid doing. So, you know, with the rise of brands wanting to be more sustainable, we're seeing more greenwashing, more misinformation. How do you think brands can play a part in raising awareness and sort of educating in a more engaging way? Because I think people are nervous to sort of claim things. I mean, I know that I've written things, I'm going to use the word U-turn, and I should not be using it anymore in today's world. But, you know, I found myself saying, oh gosh, 3 months later, I've learned that what I said, somebody told me that and I shouldn't have said it. And I'm learning on the job, I'm sure, like all of you. But how do you think we can sort of help rather than make it more complicated, or sort of guide people in the right direction? Arnaud, do you want to start?
Yeah, listen, Sarah, there's one point I want to make about greenwashing, is that we need to be also, people need to be a bit careful about, you know, calling out greenwashing for everything. You know, I mean, it's a difficult journey. Let's be kind. You know, people are trying and trying hard. It requires courage, it requires investment, you know, so let's not put that on everything. You know, there's people at the moment, a lot of critics, a lot of talkers, not a lot of doers, right? So people are trying hard, and it's such a long journey. I can tell we've done tons of mistakes. I think we part of the brands that are doing decently in sustainability, and we've done tons of mistakes. You know, we talked about what some products being 100% recyclable at the beginning. Well, guess what? Nothing is 100% recyclable. You need to be recycling ready. You know, that's because it all depends from where you are, your council, your country, your city, and so on. So there's a lot of things we had to adapt. You know, we've been accused of greenwashing, my friend, okay, by certain people saying, oh, you're talking about zero waste and so on, you should not. First of all, back in 2018, there were not that many brands talking about all this. There was a few brands, to be fair, you know, the Aveda, the big brands like this, L'Occitane, the Body Shop and so on, but not that many. And we started to define what we believe was zero waste. So it's a definition, okay, it's our definition, and we always called, believe me, we belong to a big group where, you know, we need to be within the legal boundaries and so on. So we are putting a lot of attention to the details. But yeah, nonetheless, people said, oh, you know, that's not true. Yes, well, we're saying that zero waste is about being recycling ready, using recycled material, and or reusable products on all the range. And that's what we're going to achieve. We're not saying we're perfect. Some solutions that we thought were the best are not the best anymore, because there's new technology. And that's the good news, is that there's a lot of money coming into the green tech, a lot of new inventions, a lot of new processes and so on. So there's a lot of hope. But we started, and a lot of people are starting. So let's not, you know, point finger right away about, oh, that must be greenwashing. I think, yes, some people might need to be more precise, you know, when they're launching a big, like, oh, that's the new paper bottle, where it's a prototype, it's going to be ready in 3 years. So people should say that, you know, it's not always the case, right? So people need to be a bit prudent and cautious. Nonetheless, you know, the fact that everybody is talking about it, you know, I think in itself, it's a massive achievement for this industry.
Thank you. What about Sarah?
So I would agree with that. I don't think we had any idea how complicated packaging could be from a onward recycling point of view. As soon as you try and get into bioplastics and PCR, it is not plain sailing. And I completely agree with that. We have to make a start, and we're not going to get it all right. And there will still be some compromise, actually. And that's just a reality. So yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, my view, and people who know me will know what I'm going to say, but the way you cut through, I mean, greenwashing was bad when I started the business 13, 14 years ago. It's much worse now, I would say, just because there's just more brands in this space, and that's inevitable. But I think you cut through it very simply by certification. We need to follow the food industry certification. And I think there's talk about there's no sustainable certification. Well, actually there is. And organic certification is so misunderstood. It's not just about how an ingredient's grown. It's about protecting our oceans and not polluting our oceans. It's not about contaminating our soil. It's about protecting endangered plants. It's about protecting farmers. It's protecting communities. It's about not using the right, certain plastics. It is total end-to-end supply chain sustainability. And that's what people don't get about organic. It's not about how just an ingredient is grown. So I passionately believe there is a certification standard that is absolutely fit for purpose and crucially fit for beauty. We have our own beauty organic standard now. We didn't have that 10 years ago. We have Cosmos. It's brilliant and it's really robust. So I think certification is where you cut through it, and people have to, that point about you can't just assert you are something. There's somebody checking. There's a third party checking, and in a very robust way. I can tell you we're audited, and it's pretty forward. But that's my view, is that and that's what the food industry did really well, and you can't make certain claims now unless it's true. And there's been whole scandals around eggs coming from battery farms that were presented as free range that weren't. That guy went to jail and was fined a lot of money, but there's that scrutiny. So my view is that absolutely there is a way to counter a lot of greenwashing. That is, I agree with Arno, let's be kind, but where it is blatant, there's ways you can just address that.
This is I'm just quickly going off topic. Is there any sort of sorry, I should never do this, should I? But mentorship or whatever for the big sustainable brands, helping new brands who want to learn or not make the same mistakes that you guys have learned. Is there anything like that or not? I just think it's quite interesting.
We talk about this later, but that's the intent of We Are Allies to a certain extent. For us, it's it's a beginning, and I know the British Beauty Council is doing that also, starting that. So there's a lot of initiatives, but and back to what Sarah is saying is that because on packaging it's a bit complicated, because you can do your good job as a brand, but then the products are put in bins, and then it's about the collection, it's about the sorting, and it's about the processing of the waste. And there's a lot of people involved. And unfortunately, as brands, there's not that much we can do on the other side. But we can lobby, we can, what's important, I think, is the facts, giving facts and data. For instance, all our zero waste journey, I keep on saying to the team, we're still at 68% on the website. When do we move? That's that gauge. We're in July, and they tell me, no, Arno, because it's based on the exact, number of units that we're selling of products which are sustainable. And, that's the way it is. And hopefully we'll reach 100%. They guaranteed that to me, we'll see. And if not, we'll tell you. We tell everyone facts and data, really important. And the other thing is transparency, and I think, again, we are in an industry which is so competitive that sometimes, especially some big brands or big corporations, they're a bit too, absolute in their claims, and so on. So no, it's not. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say that, typically when we launched these kind of samples, 2 years ago, which were PCR samples, we thought it was a great solution for samples. Actually, yes, because it's PCR, but it's not recyclable because they're too small. And you cannot recycle small plastic items today. So we have another solution now. But 2 years ago, I'm sure I told you, Sarah, that was the solution. And no, so 2 years after, I can tell you, no, the solution exists now because the technology was not existing. But so it's recognizing that, yeah, we said things that were at the time we thought they were true, but they're not true. For me, that's not greenwashing. There's just that we are explaining that, yeah, as Sarah was saying, it's difficult. It's costly. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of focus. And Sarah, like we running big brands, but smaller businesses versus a lot of big businesses, right? So it takes a lot of time and focus and energy to do that, right? So and we're learning. It's a learning curve. That it's a long learning curve.
Can I just talk about because you asked about consumer education piece, and I think that's a really interesting question, whether brands can do that effectively. And I think actually We Are Allies is a really interesting example, because you've got 5 or 6 brands coming together saying the same message. That's amplified, and that can have impact. And I think we have to think about sort of the ecosystem of influence we can have as brands, beauty editors, opinion formers, experts, influencers, all sorts that can just amplify this message for impact. And I always think about, don't know if you remember the Hugh Fearnley-Whittingthorpe, I never know how to say his name, who did the coffee cup campaign, and he sort of talked about how disposable coffee cups you can't recycle because of the laminates on them. And it was huge, and it made people think, and it was great. And I think if a single brand had done that campaign, and it was a reusable coffee cup company that did that campaign, would it have had that impact? Maybe not. So I think this is a really interesting piece about education, and where I think it comes back to authenticity and the authenticity of your values. If it's been something you've been talking about for many, many years, it's authentic, it's fine. But I think if brands do it and they've never talked about something before and they start talking about it, I think there's always going to be that suspicion in a consumer's minds of, when a brand seeks to educate, are they actually seeking to sell? And it is. So this real, should brands try? Of course. And it's more meaningful when you do it as in unity with other brands. I think it's brilliant. But it's just an interesting idea of how do we, if we really want to change the world, how do we do it, with all of the ecosystem of influence that we have.
Yeah. Sally Ann, is there anything else on that you wanted to add?
No, I mean, I think I can only heartily nod my head and agree with Sarah and Arno. Really, it is kind of honesty is the best policy, and admitting that you're on a journey and taking people with you. And I think you're right about partnerships and where brands do have platforms, using them generously to shine a light on people who advocate for sustainability, sort of more broadly speaking as well. I think that can help to make it authentic, so that the education speaks to sustainability as a whole and isn't always tied to product, which I think you're right, Sarah, can sometimes spark a degree of cynicism from people, but it's ultimately working towards that one overarching goal.
Yeah,
sure. I mean, sorry, no one. I go for
please,
it.
Sarah. No, sorry. No.
I hate Zoom. No, well, all I was going to say is that just, as someone who obviously does not own their own brand, looking at the marketplace from a fashion, there was a fashion brand the other week that sort of just said, our first problem is we're trying to sell you things and we're trying to ask you to buy more. So we know from the beginning we're not necessarily the most sustainable people. That it is an absolute minefield from that perspective. But owning that and saying, but here's what we're going to do to try and help, and then listing the things and claiming what they're not good at yet. I just felt very connected to them when they did that, because I thought that they're owning it. They're not great at this. They still need to work at that. And I also see it with our readers. If a brand is screaming about just the two things that are in ingredient wise, readers do now say, okay, but what else? Like, what else is in it? You sort of can't pull the wool over their eyes the way that you used to. You have to just be transparent and say, these are the great things, these are the not as great things, and we just want to tell you straight.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point about also the, it's about being consistent. Is, for everyone, is like, people understand that from a product perspective, sustainability needs to be key. There's no excuse now. If you're launching a new brand, you need to be sustainable because the solution exists now in 2021. It was not maybe the case 14 or 21 years ago, but it's the case now. So no excuse. Now, the other thing is that, let's be careful with the, the trends about what's cute sometimes, like I give you an example about the mini fridge. There was the big trend about the mini fridge. Remember when you put your moisturizers and so on? Honestly, who doesn't have a fridge? Honestly, put your products in your fridge and don't create a piece of waste who's going to end up in landfill. And everybody got crazy about this mini fridge, from everywhere. And that's why I get good friends of mine, and like, hey, why don't you do a Rhine mini fridge? I said, why? And I explained, but it's like we need to, because that's a lot of so it's stepping back a little bit, saying, okay, there's the product, there's an ecosystem around the product. Let's think about what we're putting on the shelf in the stores. Let's think about our shippers for online. Let's put about the shippers of our partners online and all these kind of things. And step by step, to Sarah's point, education, it's B2C education with the consumer. It's also B2B education. You've seen, for in the US, they just launched that, the Clean Plus Planet Positive campaign today or yesterday. You've got Ulta with conscious beauty in the US. You've got, people are coming there. But, I can tell you a few years ago, nobody was talking about it. But now also the key retailers are, doing this campaign. So I think it's great, but it's, we need consistency is key.
Brilliant. The next question we're going to talk about is, I think if you look at the beauty industry as a whole, we can't deny that there are some very clear unsustainable elements to it. So sampling and packaging. I think, there's nothing worse than when you see somebody calling someone out on social media saying, can you believe how it's arrived? There's all of that going on. The only other thing I'd say is what I've been noticing during the pandemic is we've sort of actually taken quite a few steps backwards because people are so worried about hygiene standards that I'm seeing more wipes than ever before. Everywhere you go, everybody's offering them out, like clean your desk, clean your station, clean, everywhere you look, it's sort of become the norm again, which is really sad. It's taken huge steps in the wrong directions. From your guys' perspectives, what would you say we need to do to sort of move in the right direction? Sally Ann?
Yeah, it's about reconciling that tension, isn't it? It's sort of almost the fashion analogy that you were using, that sort of it's almost coming out there and saying, look, we acknowledge. I think it's recognizing that consumers have a choice and educating them to make that choice, and that there are sort of more sustainable options. Beauty is a basic need that everybody has, and there's a real benefit to beauty, particularly through the pandemic. That has been so critical to people to be able to have their beauty regimes. So I think it's just educating people and offering solutions that enable them to still enjoy that and enjoy the beauty of beauty, but do so in a way that's a little bit more sustainable.
Brilliant, thank you. What about you, Sarah?
I think the sampling point is a really good one, and I think it's probably been a bit of a blind spot for our industry. Great to see Wren's taking really active steps on that. And I think fundamentally sampling is quite wasteful as an exercise anyway. Often those sachets, they stay stuck to magazines and they get handed out and not used. So there's the challenge there. I think one very simple way of helping, not fixing, but helping, is just giving people the right to return much more. And that way they can buy a full-size product and try it and return it. But they can do it with confidence. It's about, instilling that confidence. And I think a lot of brands do that well. We've done it forever because, we're a sensitive skincare brand. People need to try our products. That's really, really important. And actually, when I was starting this business, one of the reasons we did that was because I have very sensitive skin and I could never return anything ever. So I think, retailers need to come on board more. Some do it very well, but many don't. That, you've opened it. Well, of course I've opened it. I had to try it. So I think really making the right to return much more accessible, then coupled with more eco sampling solutions helps. I agree with you though. The need for hygiene does set us back a bit.
A quick question on the whole right to return, because then do we go down this road of people trying it, returning it, and then that's a way that product is sort of deemed not usable? I guess I get it? That's what I find tricky about it.
I think it's less of a problem than you think.
Really?
Yeah, and I think when I remember when we first, this is many years ago, we first did this no quibble returns piece, and we thought it would be really abused actually. And yeah. And I remember there was a contingent at Cardiff University who had clocked this and kept sending back completely empty bottles saying, yeah, we didn't like it.
Or refilling it with water.
Yeah, no, but we would just say to them that please think about others, because actually if you do that, then we have to remove that and it stops overnight. And we've never had an issue. So I think people return less than you think, and it gives them their choice. And it comes back to quality of product. To have confidence in the quality of your product.
Brilliant. I know, and his and the Wren big innovation incoming. Tell us all.
So it's been samples have been keeping me awake at night in the last 4 years since I've been working for Wren. So as always, as all brands for many years, we were doing sachets, right? 120 billion sachets every year from the beauty and personal care industry. 95%, 99% end up in landfill. And as you know, small objects fly away, rivers, ocean, and so on. So horrible, horrible. And yes, a bit the dark secret of the beauty industry. Not only the beauty industry, by the way, but you know, we're talking beauty. And so we tried. So first of all, we said we stop. So it didn't, it was not easy for a lot of people. And yes, we did more returns and some, promotion, as Sarah is saying, because a lot of retailers saying, oh, we need sachet because otherwise what's happening? So 3 years, 2.5 years, 3 years now that we stopped producing sachet. So the equivalent for us, it's like 5.5 million sachet that we save from landfill. And we found eventually this. So this, and this is gonna be available for everyone because the people who are doing that for us, they asked me, do you want the exclusivity? I said, of course not, that's not the point. So these people behind, it's called Tubex, T-U-B-E-X, and it's a company and they can do that for everyone, okay? We don't have the exclusivity, we didn't want the exclusivity, okay? We just wanted to be able to be the first to test it, okay? So we raised our hands and this is made, so you see the experience actually is much better than a sachet because it's a 5 ml, okay? It's a mini aluminum tube, which is made of 100% recycled aluminum because aluminum can be recycled infinitely, okay? And because it's aluminum, it's gonna be widely recyclable. I wish I could tell you 100% recyclable. We can't because there's still some instances, but compared to plastic, and especially for an object that size, it's widely recyclable. Remember, the recycling industry after the Second World War has been developed for metal and glass. Okay, not for plastics and so on, and for big objects. So this is, so basically, is it a silver bullet? It's close to the silver bullet. All the samples can be used like this. So obviously, if you got something very liquid, we've got another solution, which is a mini glass with a aluminum cap, glass bottle. But this can be available to all the brands that are talking to these people at Tubex. We can give you. I gave the contact to the allies of We Are Allies, and we can give that to more people. All the people are interested. Is it more expensive than plastic? Yes, but it's, the experience, I had a very nice email this week from somebody very important at Sephora in the US saying to me, Arno, I just received your sample. I love the product. She was calling it the product experience. She said, I love the experience that I've got with that. And on top of that, it's great for the planet. And I think that's where, thanks to technology, you can reconcile, there's no tension anymore. You can reconcile the product experience with sustainability. And I think that's one first step. And again, it's available for the beauty industry, just have to call them.
I mean, I think what you said about product experience is everything because it's really tricky when you receive products and you know that the heart is in the right place and you know that they're trying their best, but when it's, sort of squirting all over your hands or it's going a bit funny in the bathroom and it's very hard to recommend it because it's not a good product, user experience from that side. So bring on aluminium sachets.
Sachets were always horrible to use and I can never open them.
Yeah, exactly.
I am going to ask my last question. So just to say to everybody here, please do put your questions in the Q&A box. Ask anything at all that might be on your mind. And these brilliant people will answer it. So my final question is, what role do you see partnerships and collaborations taking in exploring new approaches to sustainability? So I guess that's things like, what do you look for in a partner? And sort of what, I guess we're going to look at, talk a little bit more about We Are Allies, but what do you look for when you think about collaborations? Who wants to go?
Arno, do you want to talk about We Are Allies first?
Yes, so because We Are Allies, it's an idea which is somebody for the launch of that platform called Loop, from TerraCycle, somebody said in Paris when they launched it in July 2019, somebody from Carrefour in France, by the way, I cannot remember the name of the guy, so I'm sorry, but he said something which stayed with me forever, which is collaboration is the new competition. So that person said that, not me. But I use that phrase a lot since. And I brief an agency in the US, in LA, fantastic guys called Activista working only for, charities and organizations people or brands to trying to save the world and so on. And I brought the concept of collaboration is the new competition. I said, okay, in the world of sustainability, can we find a creative idea? And they came back to me saying, we are allies, and we explained. So we had the idea, and then I picked up my phone and I called a few people I knew. And we were in the US, so we are focusing on brands which were at the time, in the clean beauty category and sold with us at Sephora. And I called all of them, and after, they cut me off after 30 seconds, say, we're in. And I can tell you I had a knot in my stomach because, I had a list of the 4 brands and I was, ticking the box, but, because you don't know, it's true competitors, right? They're not part of Unilever Prestige, it's true competition, right? So calling them and you don't know, I didn't know, I knew some of them, I knew Mathilde from Caudalie, a couple of people like this, but not everyone. And then the reaction was so positive because, and I quote Catherine Gore, she's the president of Biosense, she said to me, there's a great sentiment behind this idea. And especially, at the time, I say it was pre-pandemic, but the fact that the US context, people needed unity, people needed to get together and to feel stronger together instead of being separated and divided. So and so yes, we started that. We started to talk. So we were supposed to launch. We folded everything and we stayed connected. We became friends, just to be clear, all of us. And we had this big kickoff meeting just before the pandemic in San Francisco in February 2020. And then we stayed in contact. We said, we're going to launch it because it's too important. And people were calling us saying, okay, are you doing your idea and so on? So we launched it and the response has been phenomenal. And what we're saying is that it's not a private club, So since then, we received a lot of calls and emails from brands who want to be part of it. So we're just asking basically the brands to just let us know, because to the point about greenwashing, yeah, it's a good idea. So, it needs to be real. People who have signed up, for that initiative have credentials. They've got a proper roadmap. They launch products, again, which are not perfect like us, but we're going, there's a clear, it's action more than words, and so on and so on. So that's what we're demanding from people, just to have, to come with a plan. And we had brands from the UK, brands from the US, brands from France and so on, who are now knocking on the door. So hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be able to announce, and obviously, Sarah, you're welcome if you want to be part of it. We'll be able to announce a second wave of allies part of this alliance. And the goal is really, best practice sharing, trying to find better solutions together. I can tell you, so typically, we share this sample ID. Caudalie shared with us what they're doing with an organization called Second Life in Indonesia, which is basically collecting as much plastic from the in the environment that you're producing to compensate at least your plastic your plastic waste. There's a lot of things like this. Also, Caudalie is very good at we planting a lot of trees. They planted 8 million trees, I think, since in the last 10 years. So we've got the contacts. It's fast tracking programs for us. Also, it's like, okay, this is working, this is not working. Don't go there because it's a trap, and so on and so on. And so, reading also all the fine prints with the suppliers, because sometimes, people are saying in a nice brochure that everything is recyclable and so on. And we found out, that it was not the case always, and so on and so on. So, and it's trying to change things, We're working also with activists, so we're working with Planet Patrol, we're working with Surfrider. We're in contact with Shian Sutherland from Planet Plastic, and so on and so on. All these people who are trying to change things, legislation, new stuff. So, because eventually that's what we're looking for, right? To make sure that, guess what? There's more recyclability, in this for our industry, and so on and so on. So that's what we're trying to awareness and promoting new solutions together and helping each other.
So I'll just very quickly ask you a question that's come up that just says, how can we apply to the ally movement, even if we are a very small brand, but very engaged?
You need to send an email.
Okay. To who?
To me.
Do you want to give your email out in the public domain?
Well, no, but we'll organize, we see with the video. I mean, absolutely. I mean, you can email me. And then I'm not saying, again, I think it's a cool idea, but it's very serious. We have a kind of process and so on. So we're vetting people. we're making sure that that things can be done like this. But yeah, I mean, everybody can apply it. As I said, it's not supposed to be a private club. The whole idea was to inspire more brands.
Yeah. Anything you want to add to that, Sally Ann?
No, I think Arnaud said it all. It's, innovation is costly, and, education, everybody's on a journey and learning. So that generosity of spirit in which you kind of unite against a common goal, I think is really crucial. And I think partnerships are very exciting in the beauty industry.
What about you, Sarah?
I think it's just a really good example of strength in numbers, actually, and I think what I particularly like about it, and it came up earlier because I think someone said, how do we? It's such a complex area, zero waste and packaging, that we need to share our knowledge and share best practice. And I think this platform does it really, really well. And I love this idea of strength in numbers. I mean, it's different, but many years ago, I remember Neil's Yard Remedies contacted me and invited Pi and it was 5 brands, and we joined with Greenpeace to write to David Cameron about microbeads, and successfully got the ban through. And it was at a time we thought, and I'll be honest, Pi was minute. It was 2016, I think. We were tiny, and I can promise you, if I wrote a letter to David Cameron, it would have had zero impact and wouldn't have got written. I wouldn't have got read. But I think the point is this idea of this coming, when brands join together and unite like this against a common challenge, our planet, it's really powerful and it's very authentic, and it's going to have impact. And I think that's what we need to think about is, to have meaningful impacts at a meaningful pace. This is like the way really we have to come together. It has to be a collective movement.
It's a brilliant anecdote.
And sorry, Sarah, just one thing that I wanted to add is that it's not one size fits all in the alliance, and we're not thinking all, the primes are different. We know the goal, we have the same, but some people, we're talking about the OS, some people don't want to talk about the OS, as an example. Some people are, there are brands which are very global and some brands which are very local. So different problems, right? Also, because when you sell from LA to London, it's more complicated than when you sell just in California and so on. So there's other things. But yeah, it's not, we're not dogmatic. We're not like, hey, everybody needs to think the way we think. It's not that at all. We initiated, but that's it. It's a living alliance, and not everybody, I can tell you, we disagree on a lot of things. Just to be clear, we're competitors, right? So, but yeah, on the essential stuff, we agree, and we agree that, as Sarah said, we're stronger together.
I think you probably end up learning so much from each other. That debate and that disagreement probably leads to like brilliant solutions.
Yeah, and a lot of goosebumps, I can tell you, because it's having been in this industry forever, it's like, yeah, it's really exciting to be able to, there's so many great people in this industry, to meet and to understand the different journeys and what, the experiences and so on. It's really, I mean, it's priceless. And just that for us in the team has been,
just 2 people have asked, what was the name of the supplier of the aluminium sachets?
Tubex, Tubex.
And then the other person said, does anybody have a contact for Tubex?
Yes,
Thanks.
we can forward something. Yeah, absolutely. But
Brilliant.
if you look at them, since we launched together, they're very active on LinkedIn. If you follow them on LinkedIn, you're gonna see,
them there.
they're posting a lot.
Brilliant.
But that's also the thing, by the way. It's like, there was not a huge supplier, but they played the game with us. And then now they're getting tons of business, and that's great. People, they took a risk, and now it's reward.
And actually, to that point, a lot of, actually one of the things holding brands back was just the lack of packaging suppliers that could offer a solution. And I think there's the change in just, 2 years. I'm sure you've seen it, Arnaud, too. Just the change has been quite profound, and that's great because, and we've seen this in organic ingredients and a different place in a way, but where there's demand, that's when things happen, and we've got to create this consumer demand. So yeah, the suppliers are a key part of the puzzle.
A quick question, which trust Laura Hinton to have a brilliant question. What is the one sustainable issue that you wish you could solve in beauty that you currently don't have a solution for? Arno?
There are a few. It's not easy. It's a dropper. We cannot find a solution for the dropper. You know, the pipette that you have in certain products. That we're looking. We get lots of promises from a lot of people, and then it breaks. So it's not the same product experience. So this at the moment, I've got a few products like this, and we're gonna still ask our consumers to say, you take the main bottle, you put it in the recycling bin, and the dropper, you put it in the normal bin, because the dropper cannot be made, that cannot be recycled at the moment, because it's a lot about being monomaterial, recyclability, and that's the problem with the droppers.
And to your point, Arno, earlier, size becomes really important.
Yes.
And they always say when you cut your tubes, you should never cut the top of the tube all the way across. You leave it so it stays attached to the tube, so that you can then, because those little bits of plastic won't go through. I would agree with certainly that. I think one of the complex areas is the onward recycling of PCR, plastic and sugarcane, because it's not consistent and not clear in terms of, it's quite hard to recycle curbside, so from people from home. And that to me is a massive block, because then it's the whole debate of, well, is virgin plastic better? Well, no, it's not, obviously, but then it's more easy currently to recycle from your home. So that's one. I mean, my bugbear's always been around the regulation piece, really. And there was a Mintel study that, Sally, you referenced, and then I think it's in the same report. There's 25%, 1 in 4 consumers thinks there's not enough regulation, and around the sort of clarity of messaging and claims. And I just feel like going back to organic food, which I know a bit more, know quite a bit about. I see what changed when regulation came in, and it was positive for the planet, and positive for farmers, and positive for health. And I just would like to see more regulation would be my one.
I think from my perspective, the thing I struggle most with when I'm writing about it, or when I'm talking on this morning, is how everybody has a different sort of recycling rule. Because how do you say to someone, great, you can recycle it, and then you just get like a bombard of tweets saying, oh, I can't recycle that where I live. And that to me is my biggest sort of, I'm so nervous how to word things, because there's no like sort of one line across board. That's what I struggle with. Yeah,
no, I agree. And everything which is, all the waste management industry, there needs to be better things done there. I mean, I applaud the people like TerraCycle, this waste management company, right? And they're doing lots of things. So there's take back programs. Take back is really basically being there instead of the council. Basically, you put your own bin, and TerraCycle is going to do all the sorting that the other guys are not doing, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not supposed to do it in a way. That's the problem, put out by Sarah. So I think if we can solve this recyclability and sorting, that's going to be a big deal. But that's a political issue.
Yeah.
And that would bring the cost down. We just need to bring the cost of, TerraCycle.
Oh yes. Yes, I agree. Absolutely.
I don't know how we've done this, but it's 5 o'clock and we haven't even managed to answer everybody's questions. So I don't know if we're allowed to squeeze one more in. Should we? I better do what I'm told. I was told to finish at 5 o'clock. But thank you all so much for constantly teaching us and really leading the way and showing us that change can be done. You sort of have to be patient. And I think that's what you guys said, is be kind, like the people who are trying, help them rather than call them out. I think that's really, really important. So thank you to all of you. And I will pass back to Sally now, who will take it from there.
Thank you very much indeed. I mean, that absolutely is the message, loud and clear, about this collaboration and togetherness is the thing that's going to help us make change. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. All of our attendees, it's been our biggest session for many months, actually, which is obviously an indication of interest in the area. Thank you, Sally Ann and the team at Spring, of course, to Sarah Jossel and Sarah Brown and to Arno. I really do believe that these kind of collaborative events and discussions are such a positive step for all of the businesses in our industry, whatever their size or wherever they sit. And of course, we'll be continuing to stage many more of these to give everybody access to them as the months go by. I think our next one is with the Soil Association during Organic Beauty Week, which I think is the 8th or 9th of September. So we'll start talking about that soon. And then towards the end of September, beginning of October, we're doing an event with Cruelty Free International to talk about animal testing and how brands can participate there. So it's an onward conversation, and please keep us in touch. If there's anything specific that you feel that you'd like us to do, let us know. We're going to distribute the report that Spring kindly shared earlier on the CW website tomorrow, so that will be available for everybody. And if you have any particular questions, or if we haven't managed to get to your questions, I'm so sorry about that. We will be back, so there will be more opportunities to do so. But for now, good evening, have a lovely time, have a nice glass of water, G&T, glass of rosé, or whatever your chosen tipple is, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.